Our old buddy Grover Norquist drops by to tell us how wonderful tax cuts are. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us is Grover Norquist, the founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform, ATR.org. You can tweet him at Grover Norquist. And Grover, welcome back to the show.
Good to be with you.
It's been a while. So, you've been a champion your whole life for cutting taxes on rich people and corporations, and then, cutting health care and cutting Social Security and cutting food stamps and cutting education. You must be very happy with Trump's new budget. $850 billion in cuts to Medicare, $920 billion in cuts to Medicaid, $30 billion in cuts to Social Security. I mean, are you partying tonight?
Well, actually, I'm not in favor of cutting any of those programs. I do think they need to be reformed. You don't
you
don't cut a significant program because you say, okay, down 2%. Well, what 2%? There's stuff that's wasteful. There's stuff that needs to be done better. I'm a lot more interested in the idea of block granting means-tested programs out to the 50 states and letting, as Bill Clinton did with aid to families with dependent children.
I was just going to say that worked so well for Bill Clinton. He basically destroyed our social safety net. So if people got into a protracted, or the country got into a protracted recession, as has happened several times since Clinton did that, people on the bottom end of the economic spectrum are screwed. I guess my question for you is, why are tax cuts for the wealthy more important than every American having health care? Why is it that in Germany or in Canada or in Spain or, you pick your country, right? The 33 of the other 34 OECD nations, wealthy people like those that you represent and yourself pay more in taxes, and everybody has health care without deductibles, without co-pays, without all this BS. I mean, now you got Utah sending literally their state employees to Mexico to buy their prescriptions. Why is it more important to have tax cuts for the wealthy than for Americans to have health care?
Well, I think that what you have to look at is the comparison between the United States and Sweden or Denmark or the countries you were mentioning. What's the difference between us and them? They tax rich people more? No. 12 of them had wealth taxes. 8 of them got rid of them. The difference is how they tax the middle class. They have a value-added tax across Europe, 20%, 25% in Sweden. In the United States, people pay 5%, maybe 8% on a sales tax. Europeans have 20 or 25% value-added tax, which is a sales tax at every level of production, and not just
Grover, the simple fact is, I get the song and dance, but the simple fact is that wealthy people in all those countries pay more in taxes. Wealthy people in all those countries pay more in taxes. Yes, average people may pay more in taxes too, but they get something for it.
That's just not true. That is not true. In the United States, the top 1% or 20% or 10% or 50% pay a much higher amount of the total taxation than in the European countries.
Of the total taxation, I'm talking about individual tax rates. Wealth, you're trying to slice. What was the old Will Rogersism? Figures don't lie, but liars can figure. I'm talking about absolute taxes. Why is it more important to have tax cuts for the wealthy than to have the future of our children in a country or a world that's not ravaged by climate change?
Okay. Your point is wrong. It's not the difference between the United States and Europe is not how we tax high-income people. It's how you tax the middle class, and they tax it higher, both on sales taxes.
It is all of the above. But why is it more important to you to have tax cuts here in the United States for rich peoples and corporations? The folks that you represent as a lobbyist, why is it more important to you to have those people have tax cuts than for Americans to have health care, for us not to be ravaged by climate change, for us not to have roads that are crumbling and schools that are falling apart? Why is that so important? I don't get it.
Okay.
What am I missing?
Well, I know you're trying to play games on...
I'm not. I'm giving you an opportunity to explain why your party, ever since 1981, has had this bizarre policy of we've got to cut taxes, and then as soon as the budget deficits explode, like Reagan tripled our national debt, then you come along and say, well, look at that budget deficit. We got to cut Social Security.
Okay. Several things. One, well, I'm opposed to taxes at all levels. The Democrat most likely to be the nominee is Mr. Bloomberg, who revels in taxing poor people. You saw his speech at the International Monetary Fund where he said it's great to have regressive taxes because you can push poor people around and tell them to stop using salt or drink soda, all the things that he likes. He's smarter and better than the average person. And the establishment left loves to have nanny state taxes. I oppose those. The big fight we're having across the country is tax.
Wait a minute, let me get this straight. I just asked you why you want to cut taxes on billionaires and then cut people off Social Security. And you're telling me that you don't want there to be taxes on things like big gulps and tobacco and alcohol to discourage people from using those things because you don't like social engineering. That was not my question.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I'm not interested in your fantasy about what I do for a living. I'm here fighting against vaping taxes every day, and you have me doing something else.
Vaping taxes?
You can argue with somebody else if you want.
You said you're fighting against vaping taxes?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? It's a big move to try and tax vaping so people won't quit smoking cigarettes. Cities and towns and the federal government make a lot of money off of tobacco. They don't tax vaping at present, although they'd like to. And every time millions of people have shifted over, we got 14 million people who vape and either have quit smoking completely or largely. Teen smoking is at historic lows because the people who...
teen vaping is at historic highs.
98% of the people who vape, teenagers who vape, have started with cigarettes and not the other. Only 2% didn't start with cigarettes. So that's the fantasy that the tobacco people have put out and that the advocates of higher taxes have put out. We have very low cigarette smoking among teenagers, and one of the reasons is vaping. It's the reason why.
If you keep cutting taxes on wealthy people in the United States and big corporations, I mean, you've got
on everybody. Yeah.
Okay, you keep cutting those taxes.
Taxes are too high on everybody.
How do you propose? We had a guy from Chicago who called in the last hour. He said, "I'm blind," and Trump is talking about cuts to Social Security disability insurance. What am I supposed to do? What's he supposed to do, Grover?
Well, that's why the important thing is to reform some of these entitlements that we have. If you had taken your Social Security payments, FICA taxes, and put them in the stock market over the history of the last 70 years, you'd be much better off. The reason why a lot of lower-income people don't have wealth is that what they should be saving is taken from them.
So in other words, somebody who's born blind should be putting their money in the stock market throughout their lifetime. Am I really hearing that?
What we're trying to do is make the situation better for all people. Not everybody in the country is blind.
Well, we have 401ks. You can put your money in the stock market if you want. You get a tax break for doing it.
The government takes 15% of your income for Social Security and gives it to somebody else next week. It's not saved for you. The reason why lower-income people don't have wealth is the government has Social Security, which isn't a wealth life savings accumulation. They'll give you income if you live to 65.
After Social Security started in the 30s, we saw an actual decline in deaths from older people, from diseases of poverty, malnutrition, and even freezing to death in the winter.
And how much better would we have been able to help people if you'd let them save and invest that money? You would both.
Nobody's preventing people from saving money.
The government takes if you're low income and the government takes 15% of your income for Social Security taxes, that's money that you're not saving.
No, but here's the thing you're missing, Grover. This is the same thing with taxes. The labor market out there is an after-tax market. People, apply for jobs, work for jobs. Employers base pay on what people take home, not on what their gross pay is. So if you've got 15% of your income, and it's really six and change percent of your income, and then it's matched by your employer. But let's say we'll use your number, 15%.
You'd be happy giving it to you.
Yeah, let's say that all of a sudden
you pay that tax.
The average working person is no longer paying Social Security taxes, and everybody gets a 15% increase in their take-home pay. What's the average employer going to do when they know that those employees will work for 15% less? What are they going to do?
Well, you've got it backwards.
No, what they're going to do is they're going to start cutting wages. This is why every time there's a tax cut on the middle class, over time, over the next 3 years, wages go down. Every time there's a tax increase on the middle class, over time, wages go up. It's why McDonald's workers at minimum wage in Denmark are making $18.75 an hour because they're paying 35% taxes. Their take-home pay is the same as it is. Oh, it's actually a little higher than it is here.
And the prices are higher in Europe as well, which takes away from some of the benefits.
My point, but the standard of living is better.
Okay, you pay somebody to work for you up until the point at which how much they can produce.
No, you're missing my point. If somebody is if you're saying that people should take 15% out of their pay and put it into the stock market instead of having the government take it out of their pay to begin with, so they never even see it. If that's what you're suggesting, what I'm telling you is that employers will not be providing them with that 15%.
Okay. That's where you're wrong, because an employer doesn't care whether they're paying you $10 an hour, $3 of which is taken in taxes, or $10 an hour in which you get to keep it all. They pay $10 if you can produce $10. This is called classical economics, and it is true.
Yeah, no, the employer doesn't care if they're paying you $10 an hour or $13 an hour, and $3 is taken from the government, or $10 and none is taken from the government. At the end of the day, the labor market says that job is worth $10 an hour take-home pay.
It's not. It's not based on take-home pay.
Of course, it is
based on how much you have to pay.
People work for the money that they've got when they're at the end of the day. Employers
pay what you're worth up to the point where you produce less than the 10 or 20 or whatever they're paying.
Of course, and that's based on take-home pay.
If the government takes more, no, that's not how.
It is. People live on take-home pay, Grover. People don't live on on their total salary. They live on their take-home pay.
Right.
If you raise taxes, take-home pay goes down. People are going to get squeezed. They're going to demand higher wages, and they're going to get them. If you lower taxes, take-home pay goes up, and employers are going to say, wait a minute, I'm paying too much money for these people.